Well, that put me in a pretty sour mood. The good news is it put me in a fine mood to talk shit about MultiVersus. Look at this. You guys saw this shit, right? No fucking way this happened. Where do you even start with this shit, man? You know what? Hold on, man. I feel bad for the people that I like that really fuck with that shit or like that, you know? Like, I'm like, man, I don't even like talking shit on it. But to be honest with you, bruh, this game is such a bizarre case study in just so many things. First of all, how can MultiVersus somehow find a way to perfect Legend being a game? How you die twice? How you die twice and you a game? You supposed to only die once. Look at this number real quick. You got to understand context. 153,000 all-time peak. That's just on Steam. That's not even on console. The whole point with all this shit is free-to-play is supposed to have, by nature, a way higher install base. If 5% even is left over, that can be way still orders of magnitude larger than what you got where you have to like do an initial investment and sell, right? But this game failed to retain even 0.5%. Now, granted, like 700 people every day, like you got 699 people to play with. The thing is, to me, like as a player, I'm like, that's cool with me. Shit, I got 700 other people that want to play. But you gotta expect the retention to be higher than 0.5%. There's so many tiers to how like insane this story is. This is one of the guys I got a lot of respect for. He comes from the Smash Brothers side. He posted a really long write-up on it. Y'all want to read it? A game littered with bugs and issues that would make any typical Q&A person jump into the abyss. Yeah, the game was pretty bug-heavy throughout its life. Monetization that was so ridiculous you got gacha games. Yes, I believe I pointed that out too. I was like, wait a minute. Combat design philosophy that's focused was to simplify Smash. Yeah, like from the moment I touched that game, I was like, bro, there's no way a player was okay with this because it felt terrible. You cannot have an insane buffer mixed with input delay that is obscene and then a slow floaty pace anyway. All those things together just makes it feel like fucking mud. Mediocre internal testing, no external testing. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. For this kind of game, it felt like every time a character dropped, people were just showcasing bugs and shit. If anyone doubts your good direction, you now have a visible reference of... That's what I'm saying. How many of y'all watch X-Men 97? Do y'all remember Bastion? Bastion said something really cool. They like when Mr. Sinister was like, what are you doing? You let them go. And Bastion was like, yeah, I'll let them go. He's like, what you would do is my blueprint of what not to do. You're so fucking stupid. Anything you would do is, I want to do the opposite of, just on principle. And that's basically what you want to do if you ever are making a game. You basically want to do that. Just look at MultiVersus and just playing the opposite. And you might have a chance at a dub. At best, it's hopefully was a learning experience. At worst, it was a circus. Make a good game, work with talent that actually know combat, as just because you're in the community doesn't mean you have wisdom needed. That's facts. They needed a nerd Josh on their team. Real shit. They needed a nerd Josh. Draku TTV, you added me and said some crazy shit. I've been the biggest tournament organizers the past few months. If you're discussing the game shutting down, I'd love to give you some unique insight if you'd be willing to hop on a call. You almost come off like a phishing account. I'm afraid to communicate with you. Hey, you know what? Actually, I'll tell you what, Draku TV. Pop in the Discord real quick at me and have a little piece of paper that says, write on a piece of paper Bomberman toes. Just write it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it. I'm serious, just so I know I'm serious, dog. I'm serious. Just so I can confirm your humanity.
Texas. Phone lines are open and your calls are invited now at 555-TALK.
So yeah. I like dead games. I play dead games. You unfortunately also now are, you fuck with the dead game too. So you're like, I look at you as like I don't know you that. Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. So hi everyone in chat. My name's Draco. It's Draco TTV just because, everybody with the name Draco on Twitch doesn't even stream, so that's the name I had to take. I have been playing MultiVersus since beta. I've been officially hosting MultiVersus tournaments since early October. There have been people that have called me a pillar in the MultiVersus community. If you were to hop in, most, if not all, people who stream MultiVersus and you ask them, do you know who Draco is? You'll probably get an answer. And I had been actually, funny enough, building up the tournaments to start an organization. The day before I was going to launch the organization based on MultiVersus, I wake up to the notification that it will be shutting down. I've been involved in like tournament play, TOs, not just myself. I know a lot of tournament players. I know all the TOs. I've commentated for multiple different tournaments. It's definitely been a run. If you wanted to know my timeline from the beginning, why I think it, why it crashed, or if you just want to ask specific questions, I'd be more than happy to educate you and your community on the insight from my perspective.
All right. Well, first question: what character do you play in MultiVersus?
In beta, I was a Superman main, but at the end of beta and from then until now, I was a Harley Quinn main. I'm currently and have been for the past few seasons number 1 Harley overall for 2v2s and like top 5 for 1v1s. Number 10 Grandmaster overall. So like amongst people with all different characters, I'm number 10 in 2v2s in the world. And then I'm Grandmaster 1 like 86 for 1v1s overall.
So when you run events for this game, you're based out of North America?
Yeah, I'm in Florida.
Would you say that most of the competitors are based out of North America as well, or is this a global thing? Part of the hype, once it hit that 145,000, 154,000 consecutive player spike in 2022 was, wow, this is a game with the crossplay, free-to-play, and rollback. This game was a marriage of those three things. For me,
okay.
I just like Rick and Morty, dog. I just like Rick and Morty, all right?
Yeah.
But for the macro level, these kinds of games, fighting games, this game was a big deal as an experiment and a proof of concept. Because for 2 to X years, a lot of the talking heads and content creators and such, they were convinced free-to-play is the way to go for these games. The games are too expensive, right? So this is naturally where a lot of JP devs wouldn't want to take that chance. This is the answer to that. Like, whoa, this is what's going to happen if we have a free-to-play game that has all these features that the cross-play and the rollback, it's perfect. And it has that 154,000 player spike, and everyone's like, wow, they did it. And then it feels almost like a rug pull twice.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
What I want to ask for you is, what do you think what draws people to this game? What was the appeal outside of the characters?
Okay. Well, just firstly to answer your previous question before you were speaking about what made the game a good conceptually, most of the tournament players are based in North America. There are some in Southern America and some in EU. We actually hosted weeklies for North, Central, and South America, as well as I have some friends in Europe. We hosted European weeklies on Saturdays. But what made this game so appealing conceptually, for most people, were the players, right? Were the characters. To be able to see different IPs from Warner Brothers come together in a fighting game just blew people's minds. Like you said, the fact that you can play Rick and you can play Morty from the TV show and beat the crap out of people in a video game with it, people were like, wow, that sounds awesome, right? And when you go into the game looks fantastic. The art team did a fantastic job at bringing those characters into the digital scene and allowing you to control them. And overall, it felt like a really cool experience. On top of that, in beta, the game was pretty fast. When you hop in and you try to do some things, inputs came out rather quickly, and you could move fast, you could move back and forth and things like that. And people, when that happened, the spike occurred because when they played the game was fun, and they realized the potential that it had and how much it could be improved from that point in beta. It looked very promising to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore the hype that it had because of that. But let me give you my perspective, right? Because you're in Florida, you run events, online events for this game, right? Online and offline, or just online?
Online.
So let me give you my perspective. The beta was happening. I'm seeing all these people that I know, like I'm seeing like my friends streaming and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, let me see what it's about, you know? And you know what happened? I couldn't play it. Straight up, you couldn't even install the game in Asia. So I'm based in Asia, and I have probably a decade in the bucket in terms of running and managing events bilingually.
Okay.
For several years, we ran ICFC, which was essentially a global online tournament series, and my team ran the Asia division for several games, like 5+. We've probably done online tournaments in Asia for like at least 10 games. It was crazy to me for them to have dropped a beta for that game, and is supposedly a global beta, but Southeast Asia was just not even in the docket for it. That's not so strange, I guess, regionally locking stuff like that, but it was kind of surprising to me. So what the game you're talking about, from my perspective, doesn't even exist. You're talking about the beta. Oh man, the beta though. To me, I'm like, all I can comment on is what I played, you know? And for some reason, just on a whim, I'm gonna tell you this. About a month ago, this is like right before New Year's, on a whim, I was talking shit about MultiVersus. I was like, man, they wouldn't even let us play the game out here. And then somebody was like, yo, check Steam right now. And for some reason, it was playable. So I did a stream where I just booted it up. I just played it. And it did not feel good. It did not feel really bad, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the biggest letdowns for the community when we saw probably the biggest drop in players was initial release. Beta to the initial release was a disaster. So what they did, if the community doesn't know, is they took the game, it was based in Unreal Engine 4, and they rebuilt the entire thing in Unreal Engine 5, installing robot netcode, doing things that they thought would be good for the game. But the problem with that was, when they released the game, they took so much time rebuilding it that they only had the bare bones. They essentially had their MVP, they produced a minimum viable product, and they just released it. They said, listen, this is what we got now, it's been a while, we'll just put it out and hope that they'll be happy enough to stick around until we improve it.
Oh no.
Problem with that was, they made the movement super slow, and they didn't fix, a lot of the issues that they did have in the game in terms of hitboxes, things like that, and balance. Over the course of MultiVersus history since the release, those have been some of the biggest problems, among others, being hitboxes and balance. There's still issues with the balance now, and unfortunately for those directly involved in the MultiVersus community, the last update, which will be on Tuesday, according to one of the developers on Twitter, said it will be a 50-page update in terms of patch notes. And it's so interesting to see that there are people who have reached out to me saying, I will be so sad if the game actually gets fixed when it shuts down, right? That would be the biggest slap in the face ever.
Would you say that this as a development? Would you say that this was a shock to the community that plays this game like that?
In terms of the update, or in terms of the official release?
I would say in terms of the shutdown.
A lot of people expected the game to shut down eventually. There are a lot of tournament players, a lot of people directly involved with the community in terms of TOs and streaming and things like that. They were like, oh yeah, the game's dead, the game's dead. And this has been, for months they've been saying the game's dead, the game's going to die. But the way in which they released it right before a new season, right before when we think, things progressively have been getting better and better, not in terms of the player count, but in terms of the game itself, it finally seemed that the developers were starting to listen a little bit. It finally seemed like we were getting some of the things that we wanted. And then you wake up on, Friday morning or something like that, and you see a post from MultiVersus on all social media platforms saying, Season 5 will be our last. And that really came as a shock to most of the community. I had a lot of people messaging me, considering how I told you my plans to start in Org. All of those tournament players messaged me. People that watch my streams message me. They're like, Draco, what's happening right now? How did this happen? This is such a shock to me. I'm so sad, you know, because with the player count being how it was, the community is really tight knit. So everybody essentially knows everybody, and it's been really tough for a lot of those people. A lot of people stop playing altogether now that they know the game's dead. Personally, my perspective is it's not over until it's over. I'm gonna play the game until it shuts down, just so I can enjoy my last few months on it. But it definitely was a shock to a lot of people how they did it so abruptly.
What I was thinking about when you said that too was, how do you feel about, let's say this patch comes out, right? And it leaves the
hmm
game in the perfect place, and then the game closes out, right? Do you foresee like any kind of future with still running events like this? Like you said, you're riding till the wheels fall off, right? Do you
hmm
still see some kind of like offline when the servers go down? Do you still see some way to play offline and maintain still kind of like some form of community like that?
The thing with that is, if you know about Parsec,
Yep.
so they have been running. They're like very, very a tiny amount of people that run communities on Parsec for beta on MultiVersus. I know a lot of people that are technically proficient in terms of data science and things like that. And I said, so if we can get Parsec for MultiVersus, I'm sure we could get Parsec for Season 5. I'm sure that I could make that happen. But that's not the point. I think that if the game does well in Season 5 in terms of balancing and in terms of giving the people what they actually wanted, people will be even more sad, but then again, they might show a little bit more hype for, what they've wanted for the past 9 months, or whether it be since May, since it released in May. It would be kind of almost like a backhanded compliment if you would say, "Oh, here's everything you actually wanted for the game for so long, but
Yeah,
you're not going to be
I
able to
get it.
play it for much longer." So, yeah, there you go. We're gone now.
Well, how do you feel
Um,
about the potential of something like? Are you familiar with Project M? You familiar with what that
no,
was?
I'm not.
So it's essentially, once the game is dead and they've washed their hands with it.
hmm
How do you feel about, what if the community and engineers in the community started to develop for the game and fix some of the things that are broken with it, and maybe make some adjustments and add features that you're looking for, to where basically the community takes over for like maintaining and creating content for the game? How would you feel about something like that?
Well, that sounds like a really cool idea conceptually. The problem with possibly taking those developmental skills to the point where it could be an online game again, in my perspective, doesn't exist. And I'll tell you why. Warner Brothers has so much IP tied into this game that even if they would think about something like that on a corporate level, whether it be selling it to another dev team to work on it, they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't want to release those IPs and have another company control how their perspective affects those people that play and are interested in those IPs outside of the game. If devs on the player side were to develop the game and crack it to make updates, I think that would be fantastic. But that would be just, the tightest knit members of the community still holding on to something that they had lost. I don't think that it could develop the game back into something that we really wanted to see for it. Now, do I think that possibly Multiverses might do the thing that they did in beta again? I really don't know. For a little bit of context on that, when the beta closed, it was abrupt as well, and they waited a little bit over a year to re-release it. Um, some people have speculated, oh, the game's not dead. They're just going to do the same thing that they did last time. It really just depends, considering they've lost a lot of money, and overall, I think Warner Brothers Games, I read an article, I think it's like $150 million that Warner Brothers Games has lost in the past few recent years. They're just burning money. At the end of the day, the game was burning money because of the time and effort it took, mostly, to introduce and produce the IPs within the game.
Well, if someone like you, right? So you built up your channel, and a lot of like your community is built around this game, right? What do
Hmm.
you think the chances are of players who maybe got introduced to competitive play or found a home in this game? What do you think the odds are that they will maybe try another game like Smash Brothers is the obvious comparison, but maybe something else, maybe like Street Fighter 6 or something else like that, and they can find kind of pivot their interest to one of those kind of competitive titles to more or less satisfy the competitive drive that they felt in this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that joined MultiVersus as their first platform fighter. I know it really brought a lot of people into the platform fighter scene with all of those IPs and how it looked. There are a lot of tournament players now that do play other games, whether it be like Rivals of Ether was one that got a little bit of hype alongside MultiVersus in a different way that people had liked to play. Some people are just leaving the platform fighter scene altogether. Like, I have friends that are like, oh, I'm going to go back to streaming COD. I'm going to go back to streaming Fortnite. I'm going to go back to playing just other games, you know? This platform fighter was their main game for so long that kind of just leaves a bad taste in their mouth that their time is wasted, and they've kind of planned to move on to other things.
What do you think were the biggest missteps with this entire fiasco?
Oof, I could talk for hours on that. I'll try to give a comprehensive timeline from from official release of the game. So right at the beginning, game drops officially. Oh yay, MultiVersus is back! So much fun. We're gonna have all the fun that we had in the beta. No, you're not. Shut up. The game is slower. The game is missing a lot of the very simple aspects that it had in the beta. Something as simple as like post-game match stats, like your KOs and your damage. Like I said, a very, very minimal MVP, minimum viable product. They released the game and it was super underwhelming for a lot of the community. You saw the player count drop dramatically. I think if we looked at Steam charts in that moment, it went from the 150,000 or so peak that it had in beta to like maybe 20,000, right? And people, as they continue to play, noticing huge imbalance, whether it be on the in the side of hitboxes, whether it be a bad UI. It just continues to show the people that play the game that they're not listening. There were problems with UI. There were problems with the balancing. There were problems with the characters. There were problems with there wasn't even ranked when the game's released. Right? We had to wait a full season until ranked came out. And the movement was the biggest thing that was a problem for a lot of these people because transitioning from the beta to the full release, the movement was like molasses. People were zipping and zooming in the beta, and then you play the official release and you're moving at a snail's pace. And for people that are in the competitive scene, they want fast-paced gameplay. They want people to be able to make cool combos, but you can't have an exciting fighting game with slow movement. It just doesn't really exist.
Now, I would now hold on.
I would just say in terms of the MultiVersus context, I wouldn't go into mention like Shamsho and other things because they have their thing going and it's completely different. And so as we look at the different patch notes and as we look at when they release characters, their character selection was the thing that was going to save the game from all of its problems, right? And with every release, I want to say without fail, every single one, with the exception of maybe one, which was Beetlejuice, they released, a lot of games do this, but this was just on another level. The release of these characters was the most broken thing you had ever seen. And that's just to call a little bit onto the most recent release, which was Marceline the Vampire Queen. Absolutely astounding. Like every time they would release a new character, there would be a loop. There would be, 0 to deaths. There would be just crazy, crazy things. And this happened without fail for every single character. It's like they didn't even test their own game. So a lot of that hype that you would get from that new release, from that new character that is coming to the game, would bring a little bit of new people in, but for the people that were already playing the game, it was a nightmare. It's like, how are you gonna, how is your cost of acquisition for new players the expense of the players that are already playing the game? And on top of that, bugs on bugs on bugs. Again, I'll say it so many times. It's like they didn't even play their own game. It's just really sad. And so that was a huge thing, Their hype was kind of overshadowed by the problems that came along with it. And it made a lot of people, it's like, wow, there's a new character coming. What bugs and loops am I going to have to try to avoid? And am I going to have to ban them in tournaments? Because at a certain point in tournament play, it was up to TOs to balance the game, right? If you see a new character, it's very much likely that you wouldn't be able to play her in a tournament for about a month.
It's funny. It's funny,
Uh-huh.
You're talking about, what was the name of the most recent character? Marcy? She has like a scythe or something, right?
She has the guitar axe.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So when she first came out, she had that loop, right? It's really easy to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I played.
I could probably find a video.
I played when she had first came out, and so people were like, "Yo, somebody did it to me." I think when I was streaming it. But it's funny the way you talk about new characters coming out and being like terribly balanced or buggy, or because I can think of some games that are pretty competitive, have like competitive infrastructure built around them, and the same shit happens.
Yeah.
I can think of that's not exclusive to MultiVersus.
Yeah, it's really bad. But the thing is, like, a lot of those games, they have a communal infrastructure that allows them to do these things because the game in itself is not flawed. MultiVersus was a fantastic game conceptually, but their execution of the game was awful. There's a lot of people that simply left because of hitboxes by themselves. Like, you play this game as a casual, and you get hit by something that doesn't seem even close to what you're touching on your screen, they're going to say, wow, this game's horrible. Like, why would I play this, although I can play my favorite character? Like, what's the point? And
let me explain something to you, or kind of contextualize something for my next question. With regards to fighting games, and we're talking bird's eye view, macro level perspective here, with the way that these games are and the packages that they've had, there's been shifts in terms of how some of these companies present their games and how they sell them. And as a result, the average cost to get into these kinds of games it's become expensive over the years, For some games, you're talking about spending $100 basically just to get all the characters and be up to date.
Oh, I hadn't even mentioned that. That's a huge one. Go on.
Oh, no, what did you want to say? Go, you go.
Oh, well, with that, I mean, if you're going to bring players into the game with the characters, let them try the characters, man. It just blows my mind, the barrier to entry that MultiVersus provided to people that wanted to try different characters in their game, that brought people to their game. The fact that you could start off with maybe 1 or 2 characters, and you had to absolutely grind, especially at the beginning, to get these new characters, was so crazy to me.
Man,
it's a
I never even got to play Morty. I only got to play Rick. I was happy.
Exactly.
I was happy though.
If you didn't play beta, or if you didn't have, what was it, the Founders Pack that gave you all these character tickets and whatnot, you were forced to either grind the game for hours to get some characters, or you had to buy them. Personally, I think MultiVersus might have gone a little bit further if they just released as a pay-to-play for maybe $20 or $30, and you had all the characters.
So you think straight up the free-to-play hurt it in the end?
I think the free-to-play hurt it just because people weren't incentivized to continue playing after they didn't like the first character, right? I think that they could have continued to make money off of skins and things like that if you gave the opportunity for players to test all of their characters and get one that they liked. Because realistically, right, you have your main and you have your secondary. People will really only play one or two characters unless they're that type of person that plays everybody. And for all of those people, they're at a disadvantage because they're limited in the characters that they can try.
I think that's
So it
more of an
really-
issue. That's more of an issue from the management side of things. That's more to say their monetization structure was poor. I still think like the free to play aspect of it was, that it's experimental, obviously, but I felt like there was merit there. But I think the problem was more the monetization structure of it. And there was never like somebody in the room that was like, wait, hold on a minute. That's a little steep. Maybe we want something that's going to get people to, when they hop in, get more of an opportunity to try more characters and try more modes and do all this and have more interactions with other players in the game with different characters in different modes versus grind the game for 500 hours right now if you want to play as Velma, or
yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. And there was a big problem with their monetary structure in terms of like predatory pricing. There's an emote that's $10 on the game, right? There are skins that are more expensive than. There's actually on Twitter there was a little bit of a debate over somebody who posted a comparison between the skins in MultiVersus to the skins in Fortnite and how a bundle on MultiVersus was more expensive. It's like, how are you going to have a bundle more expensive on MultiVersus compared to the hype on Fortnite?
That's really steep. That's really steep.
It's insane. It blew my mind. And like people were calling that person out on the community for like, what was it? Like destroying the community. Oh, look at what we built, and you're calling these things out. This is real shit, and it's worth paying attention to.
To be fair, I think Marvel Rivals, cosmetics are pretty expensive too, but
they executed their game beautifully.
And that is true. that is true.
They had an incredible release. Marvel Rivals did everything right, in my opinion, and they can have those characters so expensive because the rest of the game, whether you buy them or not, is still fantastic.
And you also have the luxury of, I guess, being able to play a lot of different characters in that game too. To be fair,
absolutely, you can play any character you want. There's a great cast. There's great variety, and you don't got to pay for it, right?
Before I go back to
I'd have to unlock some characters, but
before I go back to my question before, since you brought it up, I want to ask. Tell me a little bit about what the Founders Pack was.
So the Founders Pack was, at the beginning of the game, you could buy like donation bundles at the start of the beta so that you could support the future endeavors of MultiVersus and get a few perks along with it, right? So the Founders Pack was the most expensive one. You paid $100, you got a golden name, you got a bunch of character tickets, and you got like some cosmetics, right? And a lot of the people now that got the Founders Pack are feeling very they feel scammed almost because they probably have 20 or so character tickets that they're not able to use because the game's shutting down, right? It was something to give them a little bit extra revenue and kind of proving their market share at the beginning of beta. And so when people got that, they were like, oh yeah, since the game's going to be around for so long and the beta looks so promising, sure, I'll get the Founders Pack so I can have a little bit of an advantage cosmetically.
Yeah,
and,
they're
the golden
thinking
name
the game's
going to
have like 20 seasons at least or something like that, right?
Yeah, they're thinking the game's going to survive at the end of the day. They're thinking the game will be a game that, you'll be able to play for like a few years to come. And that's just now not the case.
I'm going to tell you something. You might not know about this, but this worked for another game, so we'll try it. Can I get a hashtag save MUV in the chat, please? Can I get a hashtag save MUV?
MUV?
Yeah, MultiVersus. We gotta save MUV.
It's MVS. A lot of people.
No, we changing it today, bro. We taking the MUV.
Oh, okay. Okay, for sure.
MVS S and K did that first. You can't take that. Y'all got to get some art going and get a hashtag on Twitter, bro. That's the only way. If we go on a bird's eye view of, let's say, platform fighters, 3D fighters, 2D fighters, all that shit, right?
Okay.
The promise of this game, and part of what drove a lot of hype around it, even if you weren't into playing it competitively, was because it married free-to-play game presentation, so there's no install cost, right? Cross-play, so it united console and PC players under one umbrella of like being able to play each other, right?
Yeah.
And then the netcode. Because of rollback, you were able to effectively net play a lot of people, especially regions in, between North America, upper range of South America, and Europe, because so many people have just dog shit internet and play on, Best Buy routers from like 2003. And so the marriage of all three of those concepts, you have to understand, with these games, is very rare. Free to play, especially, is like, this was a big experiment of that. So given, and I'll offer you some additional context.
Okay.
This is a big deal because this was a almost proof of concept to Japanese developers and publishers who are afraid to invest in things like this. Because, first of all, if these games are naturally risky, what if they fail in spite of your investment and your development cost, right? And then it's like, well, it works fine for where they are, so they don't see the necessity to develop it. When you think about this game and how it went down, do you think in the end this was a good case study or a good example of what those features bring to the table? Like free-to-play, rollback, and crossplay altogether, but especially the free-to-play aspect?
I would say no. I would say that this is a case study of why a multi-billion-dollar company should be wary when they take a game studio that is making their first ever game and put a bunch of huge IPs behind it. In terms of what you're mentioning, I think that those things could work great in another game with possibly another dev team in a similar fashion. But this is a case study of how to not develop a game. Because a lot of people, with all those aspects, that's what brought everyone to the game. But it's just the execution of the game itself was just very, very poor. And it had so much potential. People continue to say that. People have been saying that for so long. The potential of this game was absolutely incredible. They just had to get the balancing right. They had to get the servers right. When you were mentioning rollback, but if you ever got into a lobby with someone in EU or even in Brazil or something, the input delay was considerable. It was quite noticeable.
It felt, like I said, I felt like I was underwater the whole time I was playing. Just because of the way the buffer works in conjunction with the input delay, in conjunction with the game's natural floatiness and lack of speed. All those things working against each other, it just felt like I was never in... It's just like you're in mud the whole time. And that's not fun. That doesn't feel good,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, with that said, anything else you want to say, Draco? You can get it off your chest, man. Talk to the people. Unless it's some crazy shit. Don't say any crazy shit.
Nah, I'm not. I got you, bro. Don't worry. Listen, man. I think MultiVersus. It would be an exaggeration to say it had a great run in terms of what we got, but I think it had a great run in terms of how we enjoyed ourselves with what we had. The community as a whole is still very tight knit. I hope that we'll be able to keep in contact for a while. I mean, the tournaments that I've hosted and the events that I've hosted a 25-hour-long King of the Hill on this game. And a little bit of context for you guys. I stream in a penguin onesie, right? So keep in mind, 23-year-old man sitting in a penguin onesie for 25 hours watching people play the game. We had a great time on this game. We had many fun events. The developer that I mentioned to you that co-commentated one of the tourneys with me, he was the EVO winner. The only time that MultiVersus ever appeared in EVO, he won that, and he was commentating with me. His name is Nakat. I don't know if that's the individual who popped in the chat with you earlier. It could have been Ajax.
It was Ajax when I was playing, but I know who Nakat is. Nakat and Void won the EVO. I know about that.
Yeah.
I might even have been there.
Nakat was the one who commentated the tournament with me, so that was definitely really cool. Oh, something that I would like to say that I didn't mention at all was the love for the tournament community from the side of the game's development. They only showed love to the tournament scene when it benefited them, right? So I'll give you a little bit of context on that. I had been running tournaments for a while, and Nakat had approached me to run tournaments with shields involved before shields were a thing. Before shields were officially released, they wanted to get some data on how the people felt and how competitive gameplay would look with shields involved. That's the only time I think I ever got a maybe like a repost on Twitter from PFG or from whatnot. You know, that's the only time I ever got love from that team because of independently hosted tournaments. And I feel like streamers and TOs really carried this game through the, how would you say, the dark ages, because nobody would really play the game if it weren't for the streamers that they love playing the game, or if it weren't for the tournaments independently run in the community for the game. I feel like something they could have done was give some love and some exposure to the people that were giving others a reason to play the game. But they kind of just only did that when it served their bench interest, when they were trying to launch something and they needed something on their end. That's the only time that they really showed a direct interest. And that goes into when he commentated with me. That was a Shields before Shields tournament. Overall, I mean, again, I had a great time on this game. I still love this game. I'm currently, as I'm talking to you, playing in a No Shields Invitational. But man, it's really sad to see it go. I don't know if I'll ever find the same love that I had for this game to another platform fighter. This really, like in beta, I absolutely fell in love with it. I started making content for it. And I don't think I'll ever see myself cemented into a game like this before. For those of you that have heard about MultiVersus, that, you know, maybe have played MultiVersus one time or another, thank you for playing, man. It was definitely a ride. And for the last season, we are going to be trying our best to host incredible events, either be tournaments or King of the Hills. My plan was before the shutdown to have weekly $100 cots and weekly $150 tournaments. As of now, what I'm going to try to do is get a few $1,000s for whether it be a final 1v1 and 2v2 tournament and some cool events previously before that. But we're definitely going to go out with a bang. We won't take it lying down. So I appreciate all of you guys. Big thank you to Majin Obama to allowing me to say my piece here on stream with you guys. I know for a lot of streamers, especially of his size, something like this isn't really normally done. So I appreciate him giving me the opportunity to give my 2 cents on a game that I really love so much and I've put so much of my time into.
There's one thing I will say. You know, you're talking a lot about, oh man, I don't know if I can ever love another game the way I did. I know it feels that way right now, but listen, man. The truth is there was something that this game gave you, and it's not, you know, the ability to play Bugs Bunny or whatever, right? It was that feeling of competing, exploring, and making a community, making connections with people, growing yourself competitively and feeling driven. If you look around, you'll find something, man. You'll find something that scratches that itch. For sure. There's tons of great games out there right now. Even, you know, maybe it's not a platform fighter for you. Maybe it's a 3D fighter. Maybe it's a 2D fighter. Maybe it's a 2.5, whatever it is. You can find something for sure, man, if you look around. But what they can't take away from you, they can take this game offline. They can patch this thing out. They can patch this thing in. What they can't take away from you is how the game made you feel.
Absolutely.
How playing in these events made you feel, especially for the first time or something like that. That's a feeling that you're going to, if you really enjoyed that the way that you know, that talking to you made me think that you did, it's something that you're going to be in pursuit of no matter what you do.
Yeah, I really appreciate those words from you, man. I mean, I know you're you're pretty cemented in the fighting game community. I mean, I personally hadn't really heard of you until I saw you on the MultiVersus page here. That's really the page that I keep in contact with. It's and it's a little side note. The way that I kind of came up in this game is me being in every single other MultiVersus streamers chat every day. Talking to people and getting to know each and every individual community. So for me to know everyone and to know that there are a lot of people that do care about this game and seeing it go like this, it hurts my heart, you know. And it's gonna be sad to eventually have to say goodbye to a lot of those people. So I do hope, along with them, along with myself, I really hope that we do find something that will, you know, give us that same sense of community and passion that MultiVersus did.
Well, there are tons of chances for it, man. It's up to you guys to look around and give something a shot. And I can say that from experience. That's not a talk down. That's from experience. But with that said, thanks for coming on, Draco. Thanks for sharing with us. You've been on the air with Majin Obama.
Thank you, Majin. Thanks for having me. Have a great rest of your stream, my friend.